Hey guys, Jaden Irwin here with Little Sticks. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going through how to create this splash page with Astro. You might be noticing that I've been doing quite a bit of Astro content lately. Maybe I'm just bandwagoning a little bit, but it seems like people are really liking Astro content just from looking at analytics and comments. So I figured, why don't we just go through another kind of example of how you could use Astro to create the types of websites that it's supposed to be used for. It really could be used for any type of website, but really like static websites, marketing sites, content-based sites. That's what it's really built for. From the ground up, that's kind of why they imagined Astro to be the framework that it is. This is a really simple splash page or landing page. Really a splash page because it's very simple. It's just like one page, right? And then it's got this contact form on it. It's got our social media links at the bottom, and then a little logo at the top. Really, this would be good for a coming soon page, maybe even for, like an announcement type page for an event or something like that. You want to gather email addresses from people. So that's what this is built for. It is not really my own design. I'm not going to take full credit for it. This Framer template, which I will link below if you're a fan of Framer or want to check it out, there's this coming soon template that it's sort of based on. And I really just took inspiration from the layout, right? Like email address, sign up, submit, or whatever you want. In the meantime, sign up for our monthly newsletter, right? So really cool layout. You can preview the link there too for Framer. It's got like a little cool animation as it loads in. Maybe that's a challenge later on. We're not going to do that particular feature on this video just for the sake of time. But yeah, kind of a cool little splash page. It's just a single page website to collect contact form or collect email addresses. So let's go ahead and get started. I have set up the base structure of this template. I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal real quick. And I do want to give you a breakdown of how this is set up structurally in the code. It's using a starter that I've sort of used internally for some other themes that I've created and some other Astro sites. But we'll just break it down real quick. So we have our pages, that's expected for Astro, right? And then our index, that's our home page. And that index page, it imports the layout from layouts.page.astro. And then we've got an import of a container. So let's just go through those real quick. We've got this base layout, right? Just very basic base layout. And then this page extends that base layout. So import layout from base. And then this page is what is being used as the layout of the home page. The next piece is that container, right? So if you've looked at the Odyssey theme that I've created, you can go look through all that code on the Odyssey theme, but that's where this comes from, this concept of a general container component. And it has a narrow attribute that can be added to it, and that sets it to a narrow width. We are already using the narrow width on it because this is a constrained layout, right? It's very narrow. So we've got this container narrow, that's what's going on there. And then our article, our content, right, is being passed inside of that container. It's got a hero article class and then a logo. We're actually going to get rid of that. We don't need the logo in there right now. And let's just go ahead and get rid of the logo at the import too. Const SEO. So this is the SEO of the page, title, description, and that gets passed into the layout. So all the way down, you get your SEO just from this very simple SEO object, which is a cool way to set up the SEO, I think. And that is actually ripped from Astro's own website. So there you go. Everyone steals something from everyone, right? Probably have heard the saying that there's no such thing as original design. Designers like to steal from other designers. Well, it's also true of developers. They like to steal from other developers too. So yeah, we've got our layouts, we've got our page styles, we've got a main.css and a reset. Won't go into too much detail on the reset. Just kind of normalizes our styles a little bit. But this main has a couple of things going on. We've got some theme colors. A lot of those aren't being used, and that's okay. Step 2, step 1, all of this stuff going on here is from Utopia. If you haven't used Utopia before, I'm going to click this link here. It takes me straight to this exact calculator or this exact fluid type scale that I've created from Utopia. Utopia is probably one of my favorite setups for scaling your typography for, you know, small screens, phone screens, all the way up to desktop screens, and doing that in a smooth manner. I have mine set up to use clamp right here. That's why it's a little bit less code than the default one that you might see. So I use the clamp value there. And I won't go into too much detail about Utopia, but it's a really cool typography scale tool. So that's where that is coming from. Font family headings. This is one thing that I wanted to talk about too. Roboto Flex is the font that we're using right here as our header font. If you haven't checked out Roboto Flex, I would highly recommend it. It's a cool font from Google Fonts, go figure. Roboto's Google's font. But Roboto Flex is this new variable font that has a lot of customization available to it. So you'll notice if I just go through here, I can change the weight. That's normal for variable fonts, right? But I can actually go and change the width. I can change the slant of the font. And then I can change the height of the font. See how it's like changing those taller, like the I, the F, the H, right? And then we can also change the width, which is really cool. And there's more settings there even too, like the grade and lowercase height and all of that. So I'm using this Roboto Flex mainly because I wanted to play with it and see what you can kind of make out of Roboto Flex. But if you go down to this H1, we have this line height 1.2, font stretch, that's a new one, 125%. And then this font variation settings. We have slant -4, OPSZ is the, I believe OPSZ is the width. I might be wrong on that. It's one of the values on this. I was having to really play around with it to see if I could make the same effect that I could out of this Figma file. I will say too, down in the description below, I'm gonna leave the Figma file that I used right here, right? So if I go and open this up in Figma, you can see that I'm using Roboto Flex. And what's cool about Figma is it actually uses the variable font options that you see over in Google Fonts too. So you have your weight, width, slant, gradient, extra. There's all of those like shortcode values there to optical size. There's a bunch of cool settings in there for Roboto Flex, but that's where this heading font comes from. If you want to swap it out with your own font, absolutely, by all means, go ahead and do that. I was just playing around with Roboto Flex, and then we've got our text there and our form. So let's go ahead and start coding. I know that's a lot of like explanation of what's going on. I just don't want people to be too confused about, hey, you've got a lot of things that just worked right after you started coding, but that's what happened. So that's how we have it all set up. But let's go to this layouts, page.astro, and let's start, actually, I think where we should start is our overall layout. So you'll notice that we've got our logo, which is this is our header, it's just a logo. Then we've got our content, and then we've got our footer. So this is what would be called like a pancake layout or a stack layout, where you have your header, your content, and your footer, and then you want your content to like push the header and the footer down, the footer down and the header up, right? So it's pushing vertically, so it's going to fill up all of the available space. And the way to do that is actually pretty simple. So if we go to our body, and let me break this down in the layout too. So if we go to our page.astro, you'll see we've got our slot here that gets passed into the base. And then on the base, we've got our body, and we want to target this body because we've got a header and a footer. And there is no header and actual footer right now. We're going to create that, but we want this main.css. We're going to go to the body, and I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and we're just going to do display grid, and then grid template rows. And I think Copilot's already figured out what we're trying to do. But yeah, so we've got grid template rows, auto, one fraction, and auto. So what's happening is we have auto for our header, one fraction, so it's going to fill up all of its available space, and then auto for the footer, right? So that really should just work, and we can test it if we start building out our header and footer. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do header.astro, footer.astro, and we're going to go down to our layouts. Let's go ahead and start using those. I know there's nothing in them yet, but let's go ahead and drop them into the layout. And we're going to go to header first. And I already created a logo here. It's that same exact logo that you see inside of Figma. Let's go ahead and go into the header. We're going to import logo. And then we're going to go to a header, right? And that's going to use the logo component that we have. And the reason I set this up as a component is that literally means you could go into this logo.astro and replace that with your own SVG, your own PNG image, whatever you have. Just drop that into the logo.astro and it'll pass it into the header. So this logo is getting passed in, and then we do want to add a little bit of style to it. We don't have to add very much, but we do want to, you know, Copilot's already kind of figured out what we're doing. Display flex, align center, all of that. Pretty basic stuff there. And we're going to add some padding around that. Now, if we go back here, I should get my server running, npm start. You'll notice it's just a white page. Well, so let's go back and look at this background. So I did already set up the background SVG too. You might see this kind of crazy cool mesh gradient, I believe is what people like to call them. It's a mesh gradient where you can see like there's objects that are blending with each other from different directions with gradients. Those are actually pretty easy to create with some tools that are available online. If you look up mesh gradient SVG, there's this color-morph.com. The one that I have is sort of based off of one that came out of this, but then I like cropped it and tweaked it a little bit. But what's cool about this color-morph.com is I can just hit spacebar and start getting different gradients. And then I can change the background color too. So if let's say I want to go to like a teal color, you'll see that it changed that background color to this bright teal, and then it builds on top of that. So these mesh gradients, super easy to just go and get one, download it. I do like that it downloads an SVG, not a PNG. And then you can upload that SVG to your Figma file and, you know, set that in, export it, and I'll show you how you can use it in the code. What you have is our public and then our assets. And then I put it in the images folder, bg.svg. So not a whole lot going on inside of this, to be honest. It's just kind of like these paints and radials. So it's radial gradients that are placed on the canvas and then they're meshing with each other, right? So that's how that all works. So go ahead and be creative, get your own mesh gradient in there if you want. This bg.svg, you could just replace it with your own bg.svg and it should just work. I do have it set to a 1920 by 1080 width and height, so that might help you a little bit if you're trying to make your own. You might, you could even go in here and set the fill to your SVG or however you want to do that. Replace this color-morph BG here too. But let's go ahead and use it. So we're going to go to our main.css, and it's going to be the body background. So let's go down underneath our grid template rows. We're going to do background, and this background is going to be var theme background. I'm just going to make sure that the background is whatever color we set. That's dark background, almost black, and that's fine. If we go back, we can see if that's working. Cool. So we've got our black background, we've got our logo, and then let's go back here to our body. And we're not going to quite do that yet. We're going to do not URL, assets, images, and then it's bg.svg. And we want no repeat, so Copilot's right on that. We don't want it to repeat. And then we're going to do background size cover. Copilot's already kind of figuring out what we're doing. It's always super useful. But background size covers. So this is going to cover, let me go back here. It's going to cover the entire width and height of the viewport. And then we also want to make sure it's centered. So you could do this inside of the background. I just like to do background position center. And the reason we want that, so let me turn it off real quick. We're going to get rid of this center. If I go back to this mobile size, right, notice that we don't have a green over here, and that's because it's centering to the left. So your background is starting from the left side of the image. We actually want it centered. So there you go, it's centering to the center of the image. So that's perfect. We've got our logo, we've got our background image there, and that is working how we want. So let's go to our header. And it looks like it's not filling up the full width and height. Justify content, space, not space between. Should be justify content center. There we go. So Copilot's not always right. We've got our centered logo right there, logo ipsum. We could make it larger too. If you go down to the logo.astro, we could do like, I don't know, 56 pixels in height. And there we go, we've got our logo. Now let's work on the footer. So the footer is a little bit more complex. Nothing too crazy though. We're gonna go footer. And this footer is gonna have, let's see, I'm just gonna look at my notes real quick. We're gonna have a list, and then our list is going to map over the social icons that I've already set up here. So if you go to this data folder, we have socials.ts. So we have export const socials. And if you've looked at my linked up template, or one of my previous videos just recently, I did go through like a link in bio template, and you'll notice that it's got socials inside of it. So that's where this comes from, export const socials. I think I called them social links in that link in bio page, but it's the same concept. So we have title, Instagram, icon, and then URL. Title, Twitter, icon, URL, right? So those break down into the different icons and the names. So if we go over to our footer, what we're gonna do is import this first. So let's do import. And it's a named export, so socials from if I can type, man, data, and then socials. So import socials from data socials, perfect. So we're gonna map over these. I'm not gonna use Copilot for this one. Let's do socials.map, social. And inside of this, we're going to do list item. That list item is going to have a class. We could just call it social link. Inside of that, we're going to have an A tag, href equals social.url. And Copilot might be spot on this one. So social.url, target blank, rel, no opener, no refer. That's what we want. Image, source, social icon. And we don't want an image, so we're actually going to do a real SVG icon. So let's import icon from astro-icon. And did we call it name? We called it title. So let's change that. And then this is going to be icon. Name equals social.icon. Alt. Don't need an alt for an SVG. Not in that way, at least. From astro-icon. Gigantic. Gigantic icons. That is what we want though. Let's do width equals 36 pixels. And same thing, 36 pixels. So we've got our social links. Notice that that just works, right? So we got our Instagram link, Twitter link, YouTube link, and GitHub link. Perfect. And what's cool about the way this is set up with the socials is you can add your own social icons and your own Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want there. The place that these MDI Instagram, MDI Twitter come from is it's called icons.js.org. You can search for it, and you can just search for whatever you're looking for. So like GitHub, there you go. Hover over it, MDI:GitHub, and that would be that icon that we're using. Let's say like Dribble. Let's add a Dribble icon just for the sake of it. We're gonna do Dribble is the last one. Dribble with 3 B's. And it's already figuring out our pattern that we've got going on. I don't have a Dribble account for little sticks. Maybe I should create one. Not right now, but there we go. So we got Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, GitHub, and Dribble. Let's go ahead and style this out a little bit. I'm gonna do a style tag. This style tag, we're going to go to this list. This needs to be footer socials, something like that. Let's do footer, display flex, line item center, padding 1 rem. Let's do 2 rem, 0. Don't need a background color or a color on it. So that centers our footer. Now let's drill down into our footer socials. This is a list, so we're going to do list style none. Gets rid of our bullet points. And then we're going to go to display flex. Defaults to row, right? And we're going to do gap 1 rem. I feel like we're at a point now where we can start using gap inside of flex. It's super useful that that's been added. It's been added for quite a while in most browsers. I think the holdout was Safari on iOS. Safari on desktop has had it for a while, but not on iOS. But I feel like we're at a point where we could probably start using that. So we're going to do gap 1 rem. You could do, supports none, or supports and target browsers that don't support that inside of Flex, but I feel like we're in a good spot now. So Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, there we go. Notice that our Pancake is working, or our stack is working. So we got our logo at the top, our content is filling up all available space, and then we've got our footer down here at the bottom. So that's exactly what we want our layout to do. Now we just got to fill in the content. So I feel like we're good there. Just make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh yeah, so this is one thing. Inside of our footer socials, let's target the anchor tag to be display flex. And the reason we want that is, let me turn this off real quick. Notice that if I target this link, it's not aligned perfectly with our icon, and that's because it's not display flex, so it's not wrapping around the icon. It's just kind of setting up its, I think it is, what's our display type? Display inline. So you could even do like inline flex too, but I feel like flex is fine. So now if we target that, grab our A tag, see how it's wrapping perfectly around that image. So our touch target is going to be perfectly around the icon. So that's perfect. That's what we want. Now let's go to the fun part. Let's go to the index.astro, our homepage, and let's start working on this hero. So the hero, we're going to have hero article. We already have that set up. Let's target that. Oh. And let's make sure we do a min height of like, I don't know, 70 VH. We want to center this. We're going to do display flex. Align items. Oh, flex direction column. Justify content. Line item center. Perfect. Now we want an H1 saying coming soon. Boom. gigantic, nice H1 in that awesome Roboto Flex font. Now we're going to do a P tag. And what's our P tag going to have in it? Let's go back to Figma. Just going to copy and paste. So be the first to know when our new site is live. Could even do like an exclamation point there. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks good. So be the first to know when our new site is live. That's good. And then now we want our sign up form, right? So if we look at this email address, submit, I know forms, devs don't normally, most devs that I know don't love forms because inputs are not fun to style. They're annoying to style. They're annoying to deal with, but we're going to jump right in. So let's do input form.astro. And what's going to be in this form? First of all, it's a form action. That's good. We're going to do input type equals email. We're going to close that off. We could put a label on it, but I don't actually in our setup, we don't have a label. Email address is our placeholder. And then I do already have a button set up. I cheated a little bit. But our default button is set up for us, and the default behavior of a button is to be type submit. So that's one nice thing, is if this is just a button inside of a form, it will automatically submit the form that it's inside of. And we want to do submit on the text of that. Now, this is probably going to be pretty ugly because, you know, it's just an unstyled form, but let's go ahead and drop it in. So sign up. Did I capitalize? Oh no, I didn't. I just called it input form. Let's not do that. That doesn't make any sense. Sign up form. And if you don't have the Astro extension installed, you're definitely going to want it. It does nice little autocompletion helpers there. But there we go. So we have email address and submit. So our submit button looked great. Our input, not so much. I am going to copy over these input styles just because I feel like it'd be kind of boring to watch me type all of this out. Let's go to sign up form. Let's do a style tag. Input type text, email, date, tell. These aren't really necessary. This is mostly pulled from that Odyssey theme again. Input focus, border 2 pixels. Now, let's go here and make sure. So input type email. Color, we could do var theme on primary, but actually I think let's just a hard-coded black is fine. Now what do we got going? So it's not applying that. Sign up form, type email. The question is, why is it not applying it? Ah, looks like it was just a caching thing. So for some reason, probably because of how quickly I pasted it or something, it wasn't refreshing. We can probably get rid of this variable here too. Just set it to black. Cool. So now let's go ahead and set our form to display flex. Probably flex wrap just in case on the really small screens we want it to wrap. Why are our styles not working? That's really odd. That should be flexed with 100%. Let's do, I'm just going to copy over some of the styles that I had that were working when I was testing this. All right, well, let's go ahead and inspect. Let's see. Form action class. Are our styles just not getting applied? I might be running into a bug. We've got our input type email, form. Maybe if we add a class to the form, let's try that. Sign up form. This is really odd. Wow, so our styles are just not getting applied. Let me make sure all of this looks good. Huh. Well, it seems to be working now. Let's try. Display flex, and then what we also want to do is input. Actually, we want to do sign up form. We're going to target that button, so .btn is the class of that button. Margin left 1 rem. Wow, this is really crazy. It's not applying the styles. Okay, so I think I found out what happened. So I had my file named sign up with a lowercase u, and then inside of my index I had sign up with a capital U. It was loading it in, but it didn't like it that it wasn't the exact same file name, because my file name itself was also wrong here inside my homepage. So just watch your names of your files. It might still import it and it might still work, but it might not like it as far as like the refresh, I believe the hot module reloading. So maybe just a little gotcha there for anyone using Astro. Sorry for anyone that was also confused along with me. But yeah, so now it's working. If we just do width, like, actually let's do something crazy. Let's do blue, solid blue. It's kind of hard to tell. Let's try red. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a red focus color there that's working. And we'll go back to black. Perfect. So what do we want to do here? We want to do max width 600 pixels. That'll constrain our input there a little bit. Let's do a margin 2 rem 0. Just kind of wrap our form with a little bit of margin. We could even you could do padding too if you wanted, but I think margin is better because we're going to push away the content around it. We'll close that. Cool, so we got coming soon, be the first to know when our new site is live. Got our email address input and then our submit button. Notice when I click that, we just get a question mark because it is submitting to the page, but it is not actually submitting anywhere as designed right now. So if you're doing like Netlify, deploying this to Netlify, you could just do like data Netlify, and you could use Netlify's forms to accept submissions for this form. Vercel, I think, has something maybe similar, but kind of a really cool feature of Netlify is that they have a form solution built in. There's other form solutions out there too, like FormSpark and FormSpree. There's GetForm, I think, is another one. There's a lot of really great form solutions out there. I've thought about building my own too and have some unique concepts about that. But yeah, like forms are normally pretty easy to do. If you have this HTML form, you can send that action value, action equals, to some URL, and then that will go to wherever you tell it to. So you get those notifications for email addresses and whatever else you're collecting. So I'm not really going to go through all of that, but this is set up as a normal HTML form that you should be able to hook it up with your own form solution. So that's really it as far as our landing page. As you can see, it's loading correctly. If we build this, it is just one page. So if I do npm run build, should be pretty quick. There you go, built in less than a second on my MacBook Pro, but built in less than a second. We've got a working splash page, and I did think of a name. I'm going to call it Cannonball because it's a splash page, and that's a fun name. So yeah, we've got our logo, we've got a responsive splash page with a pretty sweet gradient background. So thank you so much, you guys. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. If I missed anything, let me know too. I can always go in more detail. I know I'm saving this at the end of the video, so maybe those of you that stuck around long enough to listen, but I do have a Discord channel that I just started for Little Sticks. So if you want to join, check out the description. There is going to be a link to our Discord channel or Discord server. So take a look at it. If you want to join, by all means, you can join. It's just a free Discord server. I just want to kind of maybe create a community of anyone that's following Little Sticks and is interested in web design, web development. Hopefully it's a fun space for people to come and share what they're working on, maybe ask some questions about things that I'm helping, them build through these tutorials and templates and themes. So come and join us. There's going to be a link in the description below. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.